special 2-part live series. The theme is the most chilling cases with witness sightings, and part 2 is why witness testimony can both help and destroy cases. Part 1, witnesses saw them alive, then they vanished. Some of the most haunting true crime cases involve people who were seen alive after danger, only to disappear forever afterward. Patricia Meehan, for instance, she had the car accident. She seemed to be acting unusual, and then she was seen by witnesses, and then she simply walked away and was never seen again or conclusively found again. Brandon Lawson, similar story. He was in a part of Texas. He was calling dispatch to try to get some help. He wanted help with the police, and his body was eventually discovered and confirmed to be him through DNA many years later. Maura Murray, she's still missing from New England, around the New England area. She had been driving in the New England area, and I believe had crashed her car or had some issues with that, said she was calling for help. However, there was no cell service. There was a bus driver that offered to help her. She declined, said she had already called and gotten some help there. And then ultimately she disappeared, right? And ultimately we have to ask ourselves what factors can potentially play into this. One of those is witness reliability under stress, especially if someone is really stressed out about the occurrence. Maybe they were part of the accident. Maybe they were concerned about the person that they were seeing. How reliable is that witness under stress? Are they a person who freezes? Are they a person who fawns? Are they a person who fights or they run? What exactly goes on there, as well as shock and disorientation after crashes, which is very likely and can happen often. And oftentimes sightings complicate investigations because some of what people think they see can be someone else. People are notoriously terrible at picking out people, at determining facial characteristics and describing them and keeping things intact to be able to be an actual thing that could be used in an investigation. And oftentimes there's environmental exposure dangers, especially in places like, Wyoming and things like that, cases, where there's more scenic areas, more potential environmental dangers. As well as sometimes the timeline becomes distorted because, when you're in a stressful situation, time seems to move both slow and fast at the same time. And also there's the psychology of post-trauma behavior. A lot of people either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And so it depends on which one you are. I know I've shared in the past that I tend to be a freeze person. And so that can be really difficult to overcome, especially because, it's almost like you can't get yourself moving. You can't get yourself past the, I don't know what to do. I need to find my shoes and all these things. Imagine seeing someone alive after a crash and later realizing they were never seen again. So part 2, why witness testimony can both help and destroy cases. Witnesses can solve cases, but they can also accidentally send investigators in the wrong direction for decades. Oftentimes, when somebody initially sees something, that is when their memory is most clear. But as time goes on, memory distorts. Certain facts we imagine that we thought we saw may have not seen, and that is not an intentional thing. That is something that just happens with memory as we go along. Additionally, maybe law enforcement is pursuing a specific pattern or a specific person. And so oftentimes people can be suggestible, meaning that they're open to suggestion about what they saw, agreeable with, investigators, so that they can actually help and aid in the case. But what's happening is they are saying basically what the law enforcement is wanting them to say, whether or not, because people know oftentimes what the right answer is. And additionally, there's often conflicting witness accounts, which can be extremely difficult if you think about it that way. Because one witness said the person was short, another person says it's tall. Well, obviously, they can't both be true, right? One person said he was white, another person said he was black. Obviously, both of those facts can't be true either, right? It's either one or the other usually. And also, a lot of people get really big into the weeds with rumors versus verified accounts, and that can further derail an investigation. And so ultimately, there's also emotionally charged moments alter your memory. There's certain things that you're going to remember, and other things are going to come in like pieces. They're going to come in not really making a lot of sense. And so you try to kind of filter them. You try to kind of figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. And then ultimately, too, sometimes you have investigative tunnel vision. They're going one way, and the witness has said something the other way. They're looking for confirmation bias. They want to go their way because they have the experience. They have the experience, they have the know-how, and the witness is not going the way that they want them to go. So likely they may ignore some of that evidence, potentially. And so public mythology around disappearances as well causes an even more pressure put on people. And so that can be extremely difficult to deal with things like that. And so unresolved mysteries haunt communities for decades because they just don't know how to overcome that. Case in point, an area close to me had a little girl disappear. It's been probably 40 years ago now, never to be found, and the community still talks about that. So in closing, sometimes the hardest part of an investigation isn't the lack of witnesses. It's too many conflicting versions of the truth. Thank you for tuning in to Grace and Gavel, where truth meets compassion. My name is Buffy. I'm an almost 18-year criminal defense attorney. And I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.